All right. Put it in gear. Let's go somewhere.
Hey, let's go somewhere. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Road Noise. Uh, yeah, I'm glad you're hanging out with Dad and I. We are just kind of reflecting on 50 years of ministry. Dad, as I say that, I'm reminded that I'm going to be 50 in not too awful long. And so this is much of my entire existence has been related to this, but that's a good long time on your end. You're clocking in probably what, 52-ish years by now?
52 this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, but isn't fun time when you're having flies.
Right. That's for sure. We got any flies on the menu tonight?
Well, if I'd known where we were going to start with, we probably could have cooked something up. But my oh my, you know, I must be getting old because I can't remember. I think I said this last week. I can't remember if we recorded this. I know it sure sounds familiar to me, but it sounded familiar from the time it happened ever since. So I don't know if we've recorded it or not, but remember what Granny said. If I already told you, just let me tell it one more time.
Yeah. And that's from
Yeah.
my perspective, it's always fun to hear the stories. I know that, you know, you might be hearing these for the first time as you listen to, Dad tell these. And some of them are brand new to me, but many of them I have heard a few times. So it might be familiar to me as well, Dad, but if we still might not know if we've recorded it. So go ahead and
Well,
roll it.
it might sound familiar to you because you were there at the time. We've been a lot of places and experienced a lot of different situations over the years, but this particular situation has only happened one time. So I don't know if that's one and done or if we still have another one of these coming in our future. But up to this point, after 52 years, it's only happened once. We're doing meetings at several churches out in Arizona one summer. Yeah, I know Arizona isn't necessarily the coolest destination for summer travels, but that's where we were. And like I said, we had several churches that we were doing vacation Bible schools at, and we did a camp while we are out there. Anyway, so several stops in Arizona. We had the bus, and as you know, the bus was our home on wheels. It had beds for all of our family. It had a small kitchen and a very small bathroom, and the bathroom had a toilet, and it had a really tiny shower. And we had a small water tank that held drinking water. And we could use that for taking baths, but we kind of like to save the tank or that water in that tank for drinking. But most of the time, when we'd get to a church, we could hook up a garden hose to the church, and I put a separate connector in on the bus that basically would go right directly to the shower. And so it didn't use any of the water in our tank while we're there, but for taking a shower, we had the water coming directly from the church. Now remember, I said we're in Arizona, and this 50-foot garden hose is laying out there, connected up to the church, but laying on the church's parking lot on the blacktop. And so the water in that 50 foot of hose is getting warmed up. So really, when it comes time to take a shower, if you plan it just right, you can almost, not quite, but almost take a complete shower with the amount of water that's in that hose. But you got to know what you're doing. You got to turn it on, get wet, and shut it off real quick. Get all lathered up and scrubbed down and so forth, and then turn it on real slow to rinse off real quick, and then shut it back off and repeat that until you're finished. Like I said, you could almost have enough hot water to take a shower, but sooner or later the hose is going to have fresh water in that hasn't been laying in the sun, and even water in Arizona coming right directly from the church still feels cold. Now, I imagine there's probably some places where the water never gets cold and you could take a half hour shower and not run out. But typically by the time the water runs through that hose, you're done. Well, anyway, so we get to the church. We'd already gotten set up and everything. Pastor had given me a key to the church so that we could use the restrooms there and not use the one in the bathroom because we're going to be there all week. And anyway, so now it's time to go out and get that garden hose hooked up from the church building to the bus and get some electricity plugged in from the church to the bus. So I'm out there doing that, and Pastor's the only one there, and he's got all kinds of questions about the bus. Now, I have learned over the years prior to being here that typically when people start asking questions about what it's like inside, really what they're doing is they're asking if they could see inside. And if you take one person on a tour, they're going to tell somebody else, and then that person is going to want a tour, and then they're going to tell somebody, and it ends up everybody in the church wants a personalized tour inside the bus. And it's not like we didn't want people to see it, but to be perfectly honest, the hallway going down the center of that bus is pretty skinny. And when you start taking tours of people down there, just one extra person in there, it gets kind of congested. Well, anyway, so I was hesitant to offer a tour of the bus, but as I'm hooking up this garden hose, I mentioned the fact that, yeah, I'm going to hook it up to this connector instead of this other one. I said, now the other one we can fill our tank with. And before we leave the church, I'll hook it up there and fill the holding tank so that when we do leave, we'll have plenty of water then to get to the next church. But for now, I'm going to hook it up over here because this one goes right directly to our shower. Well, when I mentioned that, he came up with a suggestion. He says, Sheldon, you've got the key to the church. He says, while you're here this week, why don't you and your family just use the baptistry and take baths there? Well, silly me, I had never thought about using the baptistry in a church to take a bath. And, the thought kind of crossed my mind. Is this even legal? Is this okay? Is this sacrilegious? I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's nothing really sacred about a baptistry, and there's really nothing special about the water. So I guess it would be okay. I mean, I'd never done that before, never been offered to take a bath in the baptistry. But the thoughts going through my mind of what being in the baptistry, stark naked, and somebody walks in, not expecting anybody to even be in the baptistry, let alone taking a bath. I mean, this could be an ugly situation real quick. I don't know. I guess the safe bet would be if you're going to do that, to wear your swimsuit or something. Well, anyway, so that was the offer. And the thought did cross my mind. You know, I'm not sure about using it as a bathtub, but man, if that was a really big baptistry, and we filled it up, clear to the top. That'd be a great place for my whole family to go swimming this week. Turn that thing into a swimming pool. Okay, if it's a swimming pool, would it be okay to dive off of the pulpit? Well, like I said, I think of kind of weird things at times, and that's some of the thoughts that cross my mind. Well, anyway, I will say this: we spent the entire week there at that church, and no, we did not take a bath. Not anyone of our family took a bath in the baptistry. But from that time on, I always kept that as a backup in my mind. That if we ever got to a church and really needed to, and if we really wanted some nice hot water, I guess there wouldn't be anything wrong with taking a bath in a baptistry. As long as you wear your swimsuit, and if someone knocks, you might want to yell. But anyway, so let's leave it parked right there. Enter at your own risk.
Yeah, enter at your own risk. I have just so many memories of taking a almost warm shower with a garden
Almost.
hose. I have memories of taking an ice cold shower as well with that thing. Yeah,
It happens.
it happens.
Yeah. So, hey, that's part of life on the road, at least for us.
Yep.
Had we been traveling in a real nice motorhome or fifth wheel or something like that, that had a nice, I mean, man alive, today they've got the instant heat um, water heaters. What do you call that? The water on demand, and you can just
Yep.
take a mile-long shower and never run out of water, from what I understand.
Well, we're
Oh,
going to
well.
park it here.
Well, I got a couple questions for you. Uh, do you know why Cleopatra took a bath in milk?
No, no idea.
Probably not. Well, she couldn't find a call. Yeah, she couldn't find a cow tall enough to take a shower.
No, I guess.
Okay, well, while we're talking about cows and milk, do you know that bathing in cow's milk is actually good for your legs?
Hmm.
I mean, after all, it was originally made for calves.
Oh, I feel like I should have known that one. Calves.
All right, what did the bathtub say after a long day?
No idea.
I'm feeling drained.
I know that there's a handful of folks that just stick around for these, Dad. Yep.
I don't know about you, but I think I hear a destination down the road calling.
Yeah.
It's time to get out of here.
Let's get out of here. We'll pick it up again next week.